Welcome back, my fellow agents. It is I, your Emerald Agent of Irish Awesome. And tomorrow is St. Patrick's Day, so I figured since we have to review Kimba tomorrow, we will be reviewing an Irish movie today. Semi-Irish movie, since it was all filmed in California. But we are going to be talking about the 1959 terror movie, and there's a reason it's a terror movie. Darby O'Gill and the Little People. It's produced by Walt Disney. It was released in Dublin on June 24th, 1959, and June 26th, 1959 in Los Angeles. It runs 93 minutes. It's based on Darby O'Gill by H.T. Kavanagh, and was directed by Robert Stevenson. Not Robert Louis Stevenson, but Robert Stevenson. Before we get too much further into this, please like, share, subscribe, leave a comment, and hit that subscription bell if you'd like to be notified of new content daily. And now, look, it was distributed by Buena Vista. There are people in some parts of the world here in Fossil Bed that cannot pronounce Buena, even though they pronounce it Buena, and they can't pronounce it Buena, even though it's spelled B-U-E. Buena. It means good. It means pretty view. So, be that as it may, we're going to... you would think they were in Ireland. I mean, you really would. But we'll tell you why here in a moment. There it is. And now let's bring up that title card. And here we have the title scene, Darby O'Gill and the Little People. Let's listen to a little of the trailer that for the re-release.
Here again, from the land of love, laughter, and leprechauns, is Walt Disney's delightful, whimsical story of Darby O'Gill and his fantastic adventures with the 5,000-year-old king of the Little People.
Well, Darby O'Gill, 'tis pleasing delighted I am to see you again.
So there's Albert Sharp as Darby O'Gill and Jimmy O'Day as King Brian of Knocknashiga. Everyone should know who this young Mr. Connery is. Very young Mr. Connery at this point in time. Janet Monroe is the lovely Katie O'Gill, Darby's daughter. Kieran Moore is Pony Segru. Estelle Winwood, who we've already seen here from The Magic Sword as Sybil, St. George's mom, is the widow Shiloh Segru, who is kind of a busybody. Walter Fitzgerald is the Lord Fitzpatrick. The rest of them, Dennis O'Day is, tis Father Murphy he is, right? Of course he's Father Murphy. And everyone else is just bits of other people. Jack McGowan is Padraig, King Brian's, and I'm sorry, there's a lot of Gaelic spoken in here especially with the leprechauns, but it's just, it's a lot. And I don't speak Gaelic very well. In fact, Slancha ma, that's pretty much all I know. But here's the reason you think that this movie, shot entirely in Southern California, is actually in Ireland. It's Peter Allen Shaw, the magnificent matte painter and glass painter. So everything you don't see someone walking in is a painting. And even when you do, it's because of his genius. Don DeGrady, I'm not 100% sure but he's probably done the animation there. Would not surprise me. So it's a beautiful movie, and it's actually quite a good movie for such a terror movie. We'll get into why it's a terror movie. But there's the widow Sheila Segru borrowing a cup of tea from Molly, whose red hair is no lie. Okay, stop sharing. Not going to stop sharing. But she's just a fine Irish girl, she is. There's our Lord Fitzpatrick and the new groundskeeper, Michael McBride. The Lord Fitzpatrick does not tell Molly yet, but I believe he Sheila there sucks up to him, talking about how great her son Pony is, because Pony's a bit of a mommy's boy, as we'll find out. But it's like, all right, fine, bye. And now we see um, they're down at the bar, the local pub, where it should be called the Blarney Stone, because Darby's there filling everyone's head full of blarney about the leprechauns and drinking stouts and playing cards. There's Pony, who is a complete wanker, and the barkeep cuts him off and says, "You can't have any more whiskey, so I'll take the stout." I mean, who wouldn't want a stout? There's still some whiskey left in it. So Darby's enthralling everyone with his story about meeting King Brian and Knocknashiga, the hill of Knocknashiga, because it was really not a very, I mean, it's probably not a long hike, but look at that beautiful painting, and you can see him. They've matted him right in there. And there's Brian, and Darby's is getting his 3 wishes: pot of gold, did 2 other things that I don't remember, and then he foolishly, King Brian isn't foolish, but Darby is. King Brian makes him wish for a 4th thing, which negates all his first 3 wishes, so he loses everything. Father Murphy there wants to know why he's talking about pagan things and devilish and demonic things like leprechauns, because the fairy weren't there before the Catholics, right? And then, there's suck up Pony, complete wanker, and Pillock, or Bellend, if you will. And now Katie's gone to get her father because the Lord's there, and they're going over the grounds with his new groundskeeper, and they meet each other, and they both give each other the look. Look at young Sean Connery, before there could be only one. At least he's a Scotsman playing an Irishman instead of a Scotsman playing an Egyptian, pretending to be a Spaniard, although I love the Highlander. And there, Pony stealing whiskey, which we'll find out that's not the worst thing he does. Darby can play the fiddle, plays a pretty good fiddle boy, and we'll give the leprechaun his due, but no fiddle of gold is to be found. And he goes back up there. He's looking for Cleopatra, which is the Fitzpatrick horse. Fitzpatrick horse, yes. But it's really a puka leading Darby up, and Darby falls in the well. Somebody better get Lassie, because Darby's down the well again. In so many ways. The leprechaun's there. I believe that's Patrick and which is Patrick, the Gaelic version of Patrick. I don't know if that's Paddy Scanlon, but they're just making fun of Darby. And then they take him to the Great Hall, which is a lovely painting. A lot of when he interacts with King Brian is done with forced perspective, which is where you have you want the larger thing in the middle, in the front, near the camera, and the one back, but you line up the pictures so they're talking to each other, and probably ADR. Probably to do a lot of ADR in this movie, but they're having a party. They're dancing and singing. King Brian is a piper. We don't have a piper down yet, but we may later on. And he's like, that's where we hear this, right?
Thank you, sir. It's a grand place you got here. When I tell them this down in the pub, they won't believe a word of it. You can't do that, Darby. Once you're here, there's no going back.
Okay, we got a little ahead of ourselves there. I should have watched the trailer beforehand. But Darby's just astounded at the gold and jewels. That pot of gold there looks vaguely familiar, doesn't it? And there's the harp of Tara and the sword of Brian Boru, who was the ruler of Ireland at one point in time, and I believe a real person. And they want to hear Darby play him a jig. So more zaps and magical lines of force. I mean, this is what magical bolts should look like, not all that fancy stuff that makes it too ornate. Just cool things. They present him with a fiddle, not a fiddle, a violin, a Stradivarius violin, mind you, that he got in the 17th century, that the King Brian got in the 17th century from the King of Fairies in Italy. So I'm counting, they don't have wings. They're leprechauns, definitely not they're of the Fae as opposed to just fairies if you want to distinguish them. But I do believe that they're of the same, at least lineage, same family. Let's say that. Maybe not the same genus or species, but the same family. And they must be getting along. But and Darby plays them the hunt, which is what we were just hearing. And he plays it and he plays it, and they get all wound up. And two horse. And that's where he opens the door.
Motion picture entertainment as big as your imagination. The impossible happens. The unbelievable becomes real. And the startling is exciting to see. With Albert Sharp as sly, lovable old Darby O'Gill.
So there he is. Darby gets away. He's filled his pockets with jewels, and unfortunately, his pockets have holes, so he has nothing. But he knows that King Brian's coming to get him because he's tricked him, and he's not a fan of that. There's our poachine. Now we're about to have a piper down because that's like pure 100% grain alcohol and can blind you if it can blind you. I don't know that I'd try it on a bet. Maybe a tiny sip, but it's the Irish equivalent of strong moonshine, except that too much can poison you. So they both get to toasting each other's health, don't you know, and singing a song where they have to make up the lyrics to keep it going. Darby's trying to keep him busy, and he's not drinking nearly as much as the king. And now it's dawn, and Brian can't get away, and he's scared of Ginger the cat. And Darby says, "I want my 3 wishes." So he says, "Okay." Sick him, Ginger. And Darby's keeping him for a fortnight, which, as we all know, is 2 weeks. And puts him in that bag so he can ponder up the proper wishes, because you got to do it right or you're going to hose yourself, as we all know. Like, if you did bet a fiddle of gold against your soul, would you really take a cursed fiddle from the devil? The devil may say. So Michael's spent up in the guest room, and Katie's fixing him some porridge for dinner, or for breakfast, pardon me. And then she brings him some lunch while he's singing My Fine Irish Girl. Is that what's it called? Pretty Irish Girl. And she sings along with him, so it's not quite a musical, even though there's a musical number with strings. They don't dance, but they do sing with each other, and there's definitely a chemistry there with them. So now we're back at the pub, and they're drinking stout, and it's probably 10 a.m. because stout beer back then was also considered very nutritional because it was made with wheat, and you didn't have a lot of wheat. So if you could get it in any form. Oh my gosh, I'm sure it's a Guinness, and oof. So every time someone looks in there to see Brian, he turns himself into a rabbit. So because Darby's wish was that people could see him, and he didn't say wish in your true form. He shows up as a rabbit, but he wants some whiskey. Down it goes, pops back up, which is what we heard just here.
Whose fondest desire is outwitting the Leprechaun King and winning the magic of 3 grand wishes.
You murdering, deceitful, blind, staggering old Tullamaran! How would you like to have me put a hump on your back?
Woo, woo, hullabaloo, ha, ha, ha. I've heard enough silly blather about little people.
And so they keep because the leprechaun's lips touched the glass and drank their whiskey, they've got proof. Look at all that Catholic iconography. I'm assuming that's a crucifix there. So they're trying to get him together, Darby and King Brian. I think that might have been his second. I don't know. He's got one more wish. He's only got one more wish. So Brian, being a rather, leprechauns are notoriously tricksters, but they're overall, they can be mostly good beings. Goes to talk to Sean in his sleep and give him subliminal messages. So of course he takes her up to the top of Hill. Now I had it and then I lost it again. Naknashiga. Jiminy Christmas. Gaelic. There's a lot of Gaelic spoken by the leprechauns in here. And I'm assuming Disney did a lot of study about the mythologies and beliefs of the Irish. And so you can see that's why you have a puka in there and other things. So they're having a grand old time with their picnic, and down the hill they go. But they're not rolling. She didn't push him. I did think of The Princess Bride right away. And there's a lovely matte painting. You'd think they could walk right up there, or they had been right up there. You can't see a line at all. Oh my gosh. And now Michael meets Pony. And Pony's already expressed his interest in Katie, who has got nothing but disdain for the blackguard. And she threatens it. She says, "If you two fight, I'll not speak to either of you." And so we don't. And now Brian and Darby are watching to see if they'll kiss. And Michael is smart enough to not. And they're like, "Oh, hamburgers." But she runs up and kisses him because once again, that red hair is no lie. And they're now, oh, happy day. But unfortunately, there's always the boy meets girl, boy loses girl because two meddlesome busybodies get a hold of a card that's of mail that's not written to them. Michael McBride, which tends to infer that Michael's of Scottish descent, even though he's a fine Dublin man. And they go and tell her, and she rounds on Michael, rounds on her father. Of course, this is where Brian's getting away because the rabbit just hopped right out. And she's mad and has to go find Cleopatra. How did they get a name like that for a horse? Now, Pony here has snuck attack Michael and hit him with a shillelagh and clonked him out, poured whiskey on him to make him, he's trying to set him up for the Lord to think he's a drunkard, wasted whiskey, so obviously Pony's going to get what he deserves. It's not the worst thing he does yet. It's the stupidest thing, let's say that. The stupidest thing is he's knocked out a future not agent. Suddenly, Darby hears the wail of the Banshee because King Brian says, "You've got to make your third wish so I can get back because Katie's life might be in danger." So off they go looking for her. I just love this. I mean, once again, matte painting, these don't exist in real life, but you'd think they do. That's Ellen Shaw is just, a legend. And they find Katie, who's knocked herself out because she's stumbling around in the dark looking for a horse. And then suddenly, the terror appears. And at this point in time, we're going to take a small break. If I can hit the right button. Oops, there we go. So, the Banshee appears. And let me tell you a little story here. I had to recollect some things. Recollect, that is. The movie was originally released in 1959, even before Your Humble Agent was born. It was re-released. Now I've gotten someone says there's a 1969 re-release, but I see on IMDb that it says March 17th, 1972, which makes more sense. I don't think I would have remembered it at 4 years old, no matter how terrifying these next few scenes were. And believe me, for Your Humble Agent, this was the first terror movie. And I call it a terror movie because I was terrified with this Banshee. So I was, it would probably had just turned 7 years old. My sainted mother, in all her infinite wisdom, took my brother and I, who would have only been 5, maybe 6, depending, to the movies in Kaiserkoff, West Virginia. And this was what was playing. And, until now, this movie seems like, oh, it's just a fun little Irish movie about a man and leprechauns. And then this creature shows up. Now, a banshee is, of course, a spirit that warns people when someone they know is going to die. And it's the haunting cry, and it's supposedly very ugly. I never want to see one in my life. Thank you very much. This one comes out. The King Brian has warned Darby, but this came out, and holy crap, I couldn't get it further. I couldn't take my eyes off the screen. My brother was smart enough to have fallen asleep because being 5 and all, and a very active young agent brother. He was probably exhausted, and it was cool and cool in the theater, and it was hot and humid outside in West Virginia, as the summer always is, and most of the spring and the fall. But he fell asleep and never saw it. I was so envious. So, look at this. You don't even see a face yet, and yet you know that it's going to be the worst thing in the world. So Darby runs away. And I remember this scene lasting like about 4 hours, and it's like 3 minutes, if that. But he throws their torch at it, their lamp, and it goes away. So then we get here, and oops, let's just Katie's in dire straits here because I guess it's hit her head. She's got a fever, and apparently that will kill her, as opposed to the fall and hitting her head and breaking things. But let's play a little clip here. We're hoping that Disney will let me play a tiny bit of this movie. Yeah, she came back. Yeah, which is my reaction. And it's rotoscope. I think it's rotoscoped a bit. So he's chasing a phantom with a shovel. And he's doing a great job because that was obviously added in later on. And now she's warning him because someone he knows is about to die. And then this happens, where she summons the chariot of death. Dun, da, 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 dun, da, 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 da. I know. But once this happened, I was no longer afraid. Like death, the Banshee was far more.
Send it away! But it's not within my powers, man. Once it's sent out, it can never return empty. Then give me my third wish and let it take me instead. You don't know what you're asking for. You promised. Don't break your word. Darby O'Gill, never in me born days. Give me third wish. More's the pity. Granted.
I think this should fall under fair use, but this is the. I'll tell you what this is in a moment, but it's very traditional, this carriage and the headless horseman that pilots it. Really well done.
Get in.
So Darby gets in because he doesn't have a choice. And he's thinking that that's it. He won't be able to say goodbye, but Katie will be saved. So he's done a good thing. The Banshee doesn't appear again, so I was safe. But Brian's in there to see him on his way to wherever it's going. Now, this is called the Dullahan, which is not exactly the death coach. The death coach. And they have another name for it in the movie, and I couldn't pick it out because it was, but it's not always the death coach. So if you look it up, but the Dullahan is what it's called here in Wikipedia. But Brian likes Darby, and then he tricks him again into saying he wishes that Brian says, "I wish I could go with you," and Darby says, "I wish you could too." And now he's like, I tricked you, and you being a smart man and all. Zaps it back, throws him out of the coach. Coach goes off. So it takes away all of his other wishes. But isn't the death coach is going to be satisfied with nothing? It doesn't. Brian's alive and not part of this world anyway, for the most part. Katie recovers. Everyone's in love, and then we get to the comeuppance of the wanker, the pillock, the bell end pony.
What kind of man are you at all that doesn't believe in the little people? Maybe you'd like to find out. Indeed, I would.
This is the trailer. That's only halfway through the trailer. And look, he breaks a bottle. He wastes more booze. There you go. And he sits, and then look, he lands on a table with beer on it and wastes beer. So he's wasted whiskey, he's wasted beer, and he gets his comeuppance. And Mama's boy there. I don't know what he ended up doing. Probably hopefully being a janitor, cleaning out latrines or something. Anyway, and there we have it. They go off a singing.
Standing in the doorway is a pretty Irish girl.
So that is the movie. I really enjoyed watching it this time, even with the Banshee. At a certain age, you stop fearing fake banshees on the movie. But 7 years old, that thing was terrifying. I'll tell you what. It's become part of family lore. Did I get everything? Oh, there is one part in the movie early on where Darby calls calls Katie a clever girl, and she doesn't even look like a velociraptor or a Deinonychus or a Utah raptor. I really enjoyed it. Again, not shot in Ireland at all, backlots and Disney's massive studio space. So, my fellow agents, happy St. Patrick's Day, and we'll put the full trailer on at the end, and hopefully Disney will let us show that slight scene with the 2 minutes of the Banshee. 2 minutes. Really, it seemed like forever. But until our next assignment, this is X7 signing off, and may the road ever rise up ever to meet your feet.
Here again, from the land of love, laughter, and leprechauns, is Walt Disney's delightful, whimsical story of Darby O'Gill and his fantastic adventures with the 5,000-year-old king of the little people.
Well, Darby O'Gill, 'tis pleasing delighted I am to see you again. Thank you, sir. It's a grand place you got here. When I tell them this down in the pub, they won't believe a word of it. You can't do that, Darby. Once you're here, there's no going back.
Motion picture entertainment as big as your imagination. The impossible happens. The unbelievable becomes real. And the startling is exciting to see. With Albert Sharp as sly, lovable old Darby O'Gill, whose fondest desire is outwitting the Leprechaun King and winning the magic of 3 grand wishes.
You murdering, deceitful, blind, staggering old Tullamaran! How would you like to have me put a hump on your back?
Woo, woo, hullabaloo, ha, ha, ha. I've heard enough silly blather about little people.
What kind of man are you at all that doesn't believe in the little people?
Maybe you'd like to find out.
Indeed I would.
She is my dear, my darling one, my smiling and beguiling one.
And standing in the doorway is a pretty Irish girl.
Sean Connery and Janet Monroe are caught in their own spell of Irish magic.
Go on, kiss her.
And the powers of darkness spin a web that can't be broken by wit or leprechaun legerdemain.
With night coming down on that mountainside, you could get yourself killed. Now give me that halter, I'll get the horse.
The Banshee wails its warning.
The Banshee! Keep away from her! Keep her!
The Costobauer thunders down its tormented trail of doom.
It's coming for Katie! Send it away! But it's not within my powers, man!
A phantom puka horse flails out its haunting.
Whoa! Get down! Oh! Whoa, get down! Ah!
Here's motion picture entertainment with imagination, a heap of laughter, and a little bit of blarney. None can match the likes of Walt Disney's Darby O'Gill and the Little People.